can reach about 400 people right now without standing up from where you're sitting. 2 of them would notice if you went completely quiet for a week. Maybe 2. That's the smallest true thing I can say about what's happened to a lot of men in the last 20 years. And I'm starting there because almost nobody argues with it. It gets considerably worse than that. And each step on the way down is going to be something you already believe. For a few years now, people have been calling this the loneliness epidemic. It's a fair name in the same way you'd say housing shortage. One word for something showing up across a whole population at once. Some men hear it and brace for a diagnosis. Nobody's handing you one, and there's no fever to take. What the phrase gets right is that the numbers moved, and they moved in one direction for a long time. So the question worth answering is why it keeps getting more common, and why it settles in and stays once it starts. The answer runs through a chain of extremely ordinary things, and most of the links in it are ones you installed yourself on purpose for good reasons. Start here. Connected and close are 2 different things, and only one of them changes anything about your life. Connected means somebody can type at you. Close means somebody would drive across town at 2 in the morning without asking what for. You've got hundreds of the first. Count the second on one hand, and you'll probably have fingers left over. Watch how you keep up with people now. You know a guy got married because a picture went past you. You know another one's father died because a caption said so. You know what your old roommate's kitchen looks like, and you haven't heard his voice in 4 years. All of that registers as keeping in touch. Almost none of it takes anything from either of you, which is why almost none of it holds weight when something goes wrong. Contact went up. Closeness went down. Those 2 move separately, and the one that's easy to measure is the one that matters least. Being wrong about this shows up in your body. Men with nobody close tend to get sick earlier and die younger, and the effect is big enough that researchers keep putting it next to smoking. In 1990, 3% of Americans said they had no close friends at all. By 2021, it was 12%. Among men, it climbed faster than that. You'll feel it long before a doctor mentions it. It shows up as a Saturday with nothing wrong in it and nobody you want to tell about your week. It shows up when something good finally happens at work and you get to the parking lot and there's no one to call who'd care much. It moves slowly enough that a man can lose 10 years to it without a single bad day to point at. So take the 2 or 3 people who would actually show up for you and ask where each one came from. Forget how you met. What matters is where you both were and how long you were stuck there. I'll bet money on the answers. School, where you sat in the same room with the same faces for years. A job you couldn't quit. Basic training. A team with practice 3 nights a week. A house share where you had to negotiate the shower. A street where the same kids were outside every day after 4 o'clock. Nearly all of those have the same 2 ingredients in them. You saw the same people over and over, and you couldn't easily get away from them. That combination is what builds attachment in a human being, and there's nothing romantic about it. For most of human history, leaving the people around you wasn't really available. You were born into a group of maybe 50, and you died in that group. A man who couldn't stand the people he had didn't get to go find better ones. So we run on repetition. Somebody becomes yours by being there again and again until being there is most of the relationship. Which means you probably didn't pick your close friends. They were handed to you by whatever room you couldn't walk out of. Almost nobody sets out to make a friend. There's no version of this, where a grown man decides on Monday that he's going to acquire a friend by Friday and then goes and does it. Friendship came off the side of something else. You were there for money, or a degree, or because your mother made you go. And the friendship grew in the corner while you were busy with the official reason. Follow that through for 1 second. If closeness grows off the side of being stuck near the same faces, then anything that unsticks you tends to take friendship with it, even when it looks nothing like friendship, even when it looks like a good deal. And that's the last 30 years, item by item. The checkout line where you stood behind the same neighbors every Saturday became a self-scanner, then became a bag on your doorstep. The office where you argued with somebody about nothing for 20 minutes became a call that ends the second the business ends. The bank teller became an app. The travel agent became a search box. The bar with regulars became an order and a screen. Each of those was a real improvement, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. The scanner is faster. Delivery is cheaper than parking. The remote meeting handed you back an hour of your day, most days. If somebody had offered you any of it, and you'd refused on principle, you'd have been the idiot at the party. I caught myself last winter having gone 4 days without saying a full sentence out loud to another human being who wasn't on a screen. 4 days. I only noticed because when I finally did it, my voice came out rough, like I'd just woken up at 2 in the afternoon. Add it all up. Most of the places that used to force you into repeated contact with the same faces have been made optional, and you opted out of nearly all of them for reasons that were good at the time. I want to be careful here because there's a lazy version of this sitting right next to the real one. The lazy version says somebody did this to you, that the machines came and took your friends. As far as I can tell, that's not what happened. The people building this stuff were solving a different problem and getting graded on it. Fewer steps to purchase, fewer minutes to delivery, fewer reasons to leave the app. Every human being removed from a transaction showed up as a win on a chart somebody got promoted for. Nothing on that chart was measuring what came off along with them. The friction was doing a job for you the whole time, and it never appeared on any receipt, so when it got removed, nothing showed up as missing. Something bigger than delivery drivers changed too, and it changed what you and the man next to you have in common. Somewhere around 2010, the things that recommend stuff to you stopped being one shared list and became one list per person. Your feed learned you, your music learned you, your shows learned you, and the way those systems improve is by paying less attention to what everybody's watching and more attention to what you specifically will keep watching. That's worth saying plainly, because it's the whole mechanism and there's nothing sinister in it. A recommendation system is graded on one number, how long you personally stay. It gets that number up by finding what fits you and almost no one else. The better it does its job, the less overlap there is between your list and the list of the guy behind you in line. Personalizing for one man at a time thins out the ground 2 men can stand on together. That thinning is the system working exactly as it was built to work. 15 years ago, 3 strangers at a counter had probably seen the same thing on television the night before. That's a low bar. Low bars are what conversations start on. Now, he's 6 hours deep into something you've never heard of, and you're 6 hours deep into something he's never heard of. And there's very little to say, so most days nobody says anything. Something else got quietly replaced in there. Recommending used to be a job people did for each other. A clerk with strong opinions handed you something you'd never have chosen. A friend made you a tape. A guy at work said you have to watch this, and then you had to watch it because he was going to ask. That was a favor, and favors build something between 2 people. Now the recommending gets done well, instantly at no cost, by something that isn't a person and doesn't need anything back from you. Better recommendations, fewer favors. That trade happened thousands of times without either half of it being written down anywhere. And the same systems hand you a version of keeping up with people that costs nothing either. You watch 400 lives go past in 10 minutes. You come away feeling reasonably current on everybody. It's a real feeling and it's mostly accurate. And a man who has watched your life go past every day for a year will still let the phone ring at 2 in the morning. The surveys that track how people actually spend their hours keep finding the same slide. The average adult spends noticeably less time in the physical company of friends than he did 20 years ago, and for men under 25, it's dropped by more than half. Nothing dramatic happened to most of those men. Their weeks filled up with things that work perfectly well alone. Look at what happened to the unplanned half of your life too. Most men don't drop in on anybody anymore. You text to ask if you can call. You call to ask if you can come by. Showing up at a friend's door on a Sunday with no warning now reads as either an emergency or bad manners, and both of you would rather it didn't happen. 25 years ago, that was just called visiting. The whole thing ran on people being findable at home with no way to check first. Most of the good nights you remember from being 19 started with somebody being somewhere without a plan. Then look at where you sleep. There are probably 10 households within 30 feet of your bed. You don't know one name, most of the faces are a blur, and the door shuts behind you before anyone gets a chance to start anything. The densest living arrangement in human history, arranged so a man can go years inside it without a real conversation. There's a guy on my floor I've been nodding at for 6 years. 6. I passed the point where I could ask his name about 5.5 years ago. So now we just do the nod, and we'll probably keep doing the nod until one of us moves out. When did a conversation last start in your life without either person planning it? Two people ending up in the same place with no reason to be there together, talking for 20 minutes about nothing in particular. Most men have to go back months to find one. All of that happened around you. What comes next, you did with your own hands, which is the part that should interest you most, because it's the only stretch still under your control. When you got offered the version with fewer people in it, you usually took it. You took delivery over the store, the stream over the theater, the message over the phone call, and the phone call over the drive. You've been running that preference for 15 years, and you'd probably run it again tonight, because tonight you're tired. Watch it work at small scale. Somebody's having people over on Saturday. At 6 o'clock, you're already dressed, and you start working out the drive and the parking and how long you'd have to stay before leaving got acceptable. By 7, you're on the couch with your shoes off, and the evening is perfectly fine. That whole thing happens inside 1 hour, and at no point does it feel like a decision about your friendships. This is the step where most men want off, and it usually comes out something like this. Hold on, I work 60 hours a week. My 2 closest friends moved for jobs I couldn't ask them to turn down. Rent pushed me 40 minutes out of the city where everybody I know lives. Don't tell me I picked this. This is a schedule, and it isn't mine. Fair, and I'm going to answer all 3 without bringing in anything you haven't already agreed to. You told me your close friends came out of places you couldn't easily leave. You told me what made them close was repetition. Both of those are yours now. So the 60-hour week explains why you have less time. It doesn't explain why the time you do have goes almost entirely to things with no people standing in them. Your friends moved, that happened, and you didn't do it. What you did about it was switch to video calls, which is contact. And contact has never been the thing that makes a man close to anybody. You haven't been in the same room as him in 2 years. The job in another city didn't require that particular part. There were weekends. The rent pushed you 40 minutes out. It also put you within 30 feet of 10 households you've never spoken to, in a building full of people who also work too much and also know almost nobody. 3 years of standing next to 200 new humans has produced nothing so far, so the 40 minutes isn't carrying as much weight as you're giving it. Notice that I didn't bring one new thing to that. Every piece of it came from you. Line it all up and it runs like this. Closeness comes from seeing the same people over and over in places that are hard to leave. Convenience took the errands out of your week. Efficiency took the slow parts out of your work. Personalization took away the thing you had in common with the man in line. The shared rooms emptied, the unplanned visits stopped, and what's left is a life where you can go a full week without being repeatedly near anybody in particular. Which puts the real sentence on the table. Most of us never chose to be lonely. We kept optimizing our days for other things: speed, cost, comfort, ease. And closeness was never on the list of things being optimized for. Loneliness is what accumulated underneath a few thousand good decisions. That also answers why it keeps spreading and why it stays. The optimizing hasn't stopped. Every year, another few errands, another few rooms, another few reasons to be near people get quietly removed. And each removal is an improvement you'd have chosen anyway. It doesn't lift on its own, because nothing in the process ever reverses. And it doesn't feel like a problem while it's happening, because at no point does any of it look like a decision about friendship. That's also why blaming the phone stays so popular. One villain sits in your hand, and in theory you could put it down. The phone is real and it's doing damage. It's also somewhere around item 40 on a list, where the other 39 are things you'd fight to keep. Nobody's returning the washing machine to go make friends at the laundromat, and I'm not asking you to. Most of this stuff worked, and that's the part that should bother you. The food came in 20 minutes. The meeting ended on time. The show started when you press play. You received the whole thing you were promised. The thing that used to arrive free alongside it stopped coming, and no one sent a notice because nobody was tracking it in the first place. A lot of men see the shape of it for the first time on a form. You're at a clinic filling something out, and there's a line for emergency contact. You can put a name in. You sit there anyway because the honest answer is somebody you haven't spoken to in a year, and that name is going on a line that means who comes when it's bad. That pause is the moment the whole thing becomes visible. Everything right up to that second felt like a normal life running normally. The question now is what you do from here. The accidents mostly aren't coming back. Nobody's rebuilding the video store. Your job probably isn't putting you in a room with the same 11 people again, and the systems that know your taste are only going to know it better. Whatever closeness you get from here, most of it you'll have to assemble on purpose, out of the same 3 materials the accidents used. They're boring materials. Same place, same time, the same faces over and over, for longer than seems reasonable. What you're actually doing there matters much less than people think. Men have built 30-year friendships over dominoes and worse, and it'll be bad at the start. You'll go 4 or 5 times, and nobody will say much past hello, and you'll want to write it off as a wasted Thursday. That stretch is the part that used to come built into your week, back when you had no way around it. It's the thing you've spent 15 years successfully removing from your life, and it's still how most friendships get built, including the ones you already have. So take one thing you currently get delivered, streamed, or done alone, and go find the version of it with other people standing in it. Same day, same hour, same place, every week for 3 months before you let yourself judge whether it's working. Don't walk in trying to make friends. You'll come across strange, and you'll quit inside 2 weeks. Walk in to be a face that keeps turning up. That's most of what repetition has ever asked of anybody. 3 months of that, and there's a decent chance somebody asks you a question about your own life without you steering him into it. That's the whole return, and it sounds small until you price what it cost to end up where you're sitting, because the offers aren't going to stop coming. Almost everything you get pitched from here forward will compete on how few people it can leave in the process, and most of it will win that competition honestly by being better, which leaves one person who can decide to put some of the friction back into his week on nights when staying home would be easier.